Good evening and good morning and good afternoon from wherever you are joining now. It is my great pleasure to welcome you all this today's event of the webinar on this occasion. There are two important things happening together. One is that at IAPS, there is a new Center for Aging Studies is being initiated, and it will start functioning from today onwards. And it is also happened to be the International Day for Older Persons. That is one important development. And all of us, you know, IAPS has been doing a lot of research and teaching in the field of aging for the last few decades. Population aging is very much part of our teaching curriculum. We have a compulsory paper for our master students on population aging for the last many years. And we have a large number of PhD scholars and postdoctoral fellows working on various issues related to aging. So in that respect, a lot of work is going on. But more importantly, last 2 decades, IAPS also undertook 2 major landmark surveys on aging. One is the initiated in 2007, that is the survey of global health and global aging and adult health, SAGE study, funded by the World Health Organization. And we have completed 3 rounds of that survey, and it has created a big data set for research across the countries and a lot of research within India. Then came the LASI study, longitudinal aging study in India. Professor David Bloom as the principal investigator, took the major initiative to introduce LASI, a type of health and retirement study in India, comparable to many other similar studies happening across 40 countries across the world, including the health and retirement study in United States. So LASI is a major effort in understanding the social, economic, and health dimensions of India's elderly population, which is India's first longitudinal aging study, and it is the largest longitudinal aging study in the world. And there are many other studies at the institute and project research supported by UNFPA and many other organizations are going on. So with the establishment of the new Center for Aging Studies, where faculty from various departments and various disciplinary background coming together and working on various dimensions. So issues related to social, economic, health, demographic, and policy dimensions of aging in India. So I think with the establishment of this new Center for Aging Studies will give a new thrust and focus on aging research in India, and more work and more attention on aging studies at IAPS. So that is one important development happening here. Secondly, today is the October 1st, being the International Day of the Older Persons. And it is also celebrated to create awareness among the people about various issues and problems of aging and welfare of aged population. And all over the world, including India, a lot of programs and seminars and orientation programs, sensitization programs being organized by government, academicians, NGOs, and many others. So it so happened that both of these events are happening in one day, and I also felt it's a very good day to start the activities of the new Center for Aging Studies. So let me also welcome Professor James, who is the director of the institute, to chair this session. Let me also welcome Professor David Bloom, Professor S. Irudaya Rajan, and Dr. Mala Kapur Shankardass, who are the speakers for today's event, and all my faculty colleagues, aging researchers, and students from IIPS and those who are joining this today's webinar. It is also my pleasure to introduce and speak few words about our chief guest today's event, Professor David Bloom. I think David Bloom is a most well-known economist and demographer. Most of you have, I'm sure most of you have read his very important and pioneering work in the field of demographic dividend. He is the Clarence James Campbell Professor of Economics and Demography, the Department of Global Health and Population at Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health. He is an economist whose work focuses on health, demography, education, labor, and aging issues. And as I said earlier, his works on the demographic dividend is well quoted, and it has become a part of the vocabulary now. And Dr. Bloom has published large number of research papers, more than 300 research papers and many books. Currently, Professor Bloom also serves as the director of the Harvard program on global demography of aging. In 2005, he was elected as the fellow of the American Academy of Arts and Science. And he is a recipient of many prestigious awards and fellowships, and also served as the advisor to many international organizations like International Monetary Fund, World Bank, World Health Organization, ILO, and UNDP, and many other organizations. As an economist and demographer, his research essentially focused on the application of microeconomic theory to the fields of labor, population health, development, environment, with a focus on international health and demography, and to identify the challenges due to the changes in age structure associated with the declining fertility as an important window of opportunity for rapid economic development. And more importantly, Professor David Bloom is working with aging issues in India for the last 15 years. As I mentioned earlier, he initiated the longitudinal aging study in India. He is instrumental in bringing the study. So last 15 years, very closely working on the aging research and aging issues in India. And we are so happy to have him here. And he is very much attached to India, a friend and well-wisher of IIPS. And when we informed him that there is a new center for aging studies IIPS is going to initiate now, he extended all his support and offered all his help in whichever way he can support the research and studies in the new center. Another important thing, David is very much closely linked with India for last, he's married to an Indian, Rashmi Reddy from Bangalore, for the last 30 years, and also very closely linked with many Indian researchers and Indian institutions. So we are very happy to have Professor David Bloom here today as a chief guest of today's event, despite his very hectic schedule. And we look forward to his address on this occasion. So now let me invite Professor K.S. James, Director of IIPS, to chair this session and also offer his introductory remarks. Over to Professor James.
Okay, thank you, Professor T.V. Shekhar and Professor David Bloom, Professor Irudaya Rajan. I think Dr. Mala Kapur is yet to join. She might also be joining us, and my friends and whoever others who have already joined, the delegates who have already joined for this webinar. I think it's an important day for the Institute. As Professor T.V. Shekhar has told, we are launching a center called Center for Aging Studies. In addition, today also we are launching 2 new departments, and at another center, a Department of Family and Generations, which also primarily will emphasize on the studies on not only on aging, but other aspects of life course, and plus a Department of Survey Research and Data Analytics. These 2 new departments are launched today, as well as a Center for Demography of Gender. Official launch, perhaps this is the initial starting, but there will be an official launch functions later, but we will be planning for it. I would look forward to all of you participating in the official launch function, which will be more of an academic function as well. So that will be in the future. But today, as you know, because this program is also being held because we are in the International Day of Older Persons, which UN is celebrating, and with a topic, digital equity for all ages. I think that's also a very, very important theme we need to really consider, especially in a changing scenario. What is a digital literacy or digital world can really help the large proportion of elderly, both not only in the developed countries, even in the emerging countries, like developing countries like India. So that way, I think it is very, very important topic. I think the UN has not told actually digital literacy for older persons, but they have told digital literacy for all ages. I think that also signifies, particularly for a country like India, when we really look at Government of India is launched a program called at least digital literacy, at least one member of the household by 2020. That's what they have been conceived, but we may not have achieved that. But at the same time, it is also important to look at who the member should be given digital literacy, because so that it will have a wider implications within the household, especially in a country like India, where family is very strong, whether it is the younger generation or the adult, or whether the older persons has to be digitally literate so that all other members can learn from each other and become much more digitally digital equity is also achieved during that process. I think we have fortunate to have Professor David Bloom. I should not take much of a time, so because we are all eager to looking forward to your lecture, David. So let me now invite you to give your keynote address for this program, and we look forward to listening you throughout this, and also the others, Professor Rajan and Dr. Mala Kapur later. So over to you, Dr. David.
Thank you, Professor James. And also thank you, Professor Shaker, for that very kind introduction, and good day, everyone. I feel honored and privileged to be with you today. I don't think there could be a more auspicious day than October 1st, the International Day of Older Persons, to inaugurate the Center for Aging Studies at IIPS. I'm very pleased that the IIPS Governing Board, the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, and the Government of India have been proactive in understanding, assessing, and promoting aging-related data collection and research in India. Ultimately, I think that will guide much-needed aging-related policymaking in India for sure, but beyond as well. When I received the news of the Center for Aging Studies establishment, I found it especially satisfying at a personal level, because, as Professor Shaker just indicated, I've been working fruitfully, I think, on LASI since late 2006. So that puts me in my 15th year of LASI-related work. And I just would like to start by saying congratulations to IIPS for inaugurating this initiative in a year that's been so uniquely difficult, but also filled with myriad successes. It's very gratifying to me that earlier this year, we saw the completion of the initial round of LASI data collection, the launch of a national report, and also the public release of the Wave 1 LASI data. These milestones provide India with an absolutely unprecedented opportunity to respond to the impending challenges of rapid population aging. For Indian policymakers, aging poses, as I say, unprecedented health, social, and economic issues. To help realize a future that gives India's elderly more years of good health, and also an environment that ensures their independence, their security, their productivity, we need a far better understanding of age-related facts and issues. And it's my sincere hope that undertakings like the new Center for Aging Studies can continue to promote work in this arena. Now, I think we all know that India is expected to undergo some major demographic shifts in the coming years. Those shifts are already underway. It's projected, for example, by 2050 that 20% of the total population of India will be age 60 and over. That translates into around 320 million people, which is not quite, but almost the size of the current population of the United States. The scale of this impending demographic shift in India will likely mean that India is going to need new models of care for its elderly, because under the current family-based culture, family members are the ones who predominantly are responsible for the care of elderly parents and grandparents. But the social structure is also changing. So not only an increased burden, but also a changing social structure. So we're talking about here a gradual transition from the extended joint family system to nuclear families. We're talking about migration to urban areas and other countries. All of these kinds of changes will place India under significant stress. And proactive interventions that provide economic security, social well-being, geriatric healthcare, and long-term care are going to be needed from national, state, and local governments. India's demographic shift, I would also say, presents wide-ranging and complex health, social, and economic challenges. They present that currently and also in the future. So I'm speaking here about challenges related to physical and mental health, access to healthcare, the financing of healthcare expenditures, physical and economic security of older adults, and also changing family structures. Up until this year's release of the LASI Wave 1 data, India had, except for the SAGE data that Professor Shaker mentioned briefly a few moments ago, India had a paucity of policy-relevant, high-quality data on older adults that could be used to understand the process and the experience of aging, and also to design effective and efficient policies to promote the well-being of its older people. The government of India is, I'm happy to say, keenly aware of the policy implications of these looming challenges. That's why it's such a strong supporter of the collection and dissemination of publicly available aging-related data through LASI. And I would also note here that LASI data are perhaps the most valuable asset for the new Center for Aging Studies that we're inaugurating today. Just very briefly, LASI is an effort to push out the data frontier, to push it out by collecting and providing high-quality, longitudinal, internationally harmonized data on health, social, and economic aspects of the experience of aging in India. An important objective of LASI is also to make the microdata available for researchers and academics in India and also outside of India in an effort to greatly leverage the value of and the learnings from those data. Now, by way of LASI programmatic history, I just want to turn for a moment to an overview of LASI and sketch my journey to today's event. So the idea for LASI was born about 15 years ago in late 2006 when Dr. Richard Sussman, who was then the director of the Department of Behavioral and Social Research at the U.S. National Institute on Aging, he contacted me and asked me to explore the prospect of conducting a health and retirement study in India. It was evident then that India, which was and continues to be and will soon be the population superpower, it was evident that India was facing immense challenges involving its aging population in the future. It also seemed clear that many Indian policymakers were not paying attention to those challenges and had little sense of their options for addressing them. So Dr. Sussman and I both realized that the demographic dividend that India was then reaping was time limited, and the country would have to face up to some daunting health, social, economic, and fiscal challenges associated with managing a rapidly growing, graying population. At any rate, after my initial conversation with Dr. Sussman, I met Jin Cook Lee, an economist at Ohio State University, and in early 2007, I visited a couple of institutions in India, including IIPS, and I met my old friend, the late Professor Mari Bhatt, who is then the director of IIPS, and we spoke about the prospect of LASI. And needless to say, Mari Bhatt was very supportive of the idea of LASI. And he actually introduced me to Professor Arokyasamy, who joined Jin Cook and me in initiating and spearheading the LASI project. And I would note here that Professor Arokyasamy's very special experience with fieldwork was an essential ingredient in the LASI recipe throughout the last 15 years. LASI was the right step at the right time for India and for making progress toward the government of India's vision of healthy aging. I would also note that initiatives like LASI, in addition to the new Center for Aging Studies being inaugurated today, these tie in well with the UN's core agenda in this area. So as I'm sure you all know, the UN has declared this decade to be the decade of healthy aging. That moniker reflects a normative commitment that the rights and dignity of older adults and the experience of aging require attention, imagination, and investment. Now, the first wave of LASI ran from 2017 through 2018 and a little beyond, and enrolled more than 72,000 individuals aged 45 and older and their spouses, making it, as Professor Shaker noted earlier, the largest health and retirement survey by numbers in the world. The information we gathered as part of LASI offers insight on a host of understudied variables and influences on the experience of aging. Those include chronic health conditions, disability and assistance, life and family history, social and economic well-being, and participation in old age benefit schemes. The data that we've examined thus far reveal to us a great deal about the experience of aging in India. Unsurprisingly, they confirm that the prevalence of chronic diseases increases with age, but they also reveal a significant prevalence of undiagnosed and underdiagnosed diseases like hypertension, diabetes, and vision impairment, along with the fact that a preponderance of older Indians do not have health insurance. LASI is also revealing gender differences in the health, social, and economic well-being of older adults, including the fact that some diseases like heart diseases, stroke, and diabetes are higher among men, and also the fact that women are more likely to be diagnosed with hypertension, anemia, bronchitis, depression, Alzheimer's disease and related dementias, bone and joint diseases, and cancer. The LASI data reveal other disparities in health and well-being as well, by urban-rural residents, state, caste, religion, education, and income. And in a very telling snapshot of aging in India, I would just highlight the fact that only around 50% of older Indians are highly satisfied, quote unquote, with their lives. Analyses of the LASI Wave 1 data also have significant policy value. For example, these data could be used to help design and implement targeted NCD prevention and management programs. They could be used to assess the need for disease prevention programs such as adult vaccination, tobacco and alcohol use awareness, and physical activity. They could be used to strengthen geriatric care in India, including through the reform of medical curriculum to expand geriatric medicine, through the expansion of the number and capacity of geriatric centers, and through the integration of geriatric care in primary, secondary, and tertiary healthcare services, including community-based health services. LASI data also have application to assessing the value of social welfare and government health programs and innovating in their design and their implementation. And the LASI data have application to assessing the need for and the value of age-friendly infrastructure and housing, as well as application to the development of retirement preparedness programs, as well as programs to enhance health literacy and also financial literacy among the general population, for sure, but particularly among older adults. Now, I want to note that I think the application of LASI data to all of these issues holds great promise for India. And it's my fervent hope and confident expectation that LASI data will figure prominently in the design of policies to improve the experience of aging in India. The policies implications that I've just outlined will involve significant resources, significant coordination, and significant commitment across sectors and stakeholders to bring these aspirations to fruition. These resources, however, will ensure a superior future, one with a healthier, happier, more economically and socially secure and independent older population. So my key point here is that population aging in India and around the world is, of course, inevitable, but its consequences are not, and that's where LASI comes in. I'm also hoping that channeling more resources towards supporting the elderly will shift our global perception of older people in a way that counters a phenomenon known as ageism. This ism is essentially a reference to stereotyping individuals on the basis of their age and using that perspective to justify prejudice, discrimination, and adverse treatment. The fact that labor force participation, hours worked for pay, and earnings tend to decline as people progress through the older ages is taken as direct evidence in support of this stereotype and of the differential treatment and age disparities that often follow. Now, the willingness to sacrifice the health of older people to preserve economic well-being constitutes what I like to think of as a false Faustian bargain. It's false in the sense that it can't be older people versus the economy. Older people are the economy, or at least a significant component thereof, both in the usual sense of the paid work they do, but also in the less visible sense of the appreciable contributions they make through unpaid work, especially caregiving, volunteer work, and household work. The productive non-market activities of older people cannot be dismissed as being of negligible magnitude. With regard to this phenomenon of ageism, let me make two further points. The first is that the practice of undervaluing the full economic contributions of older adults is itself a form of ageism. And the second point is that it's a particularly dangerous form of ageism in the era of COVID. It's dangerous because it undervalues the health and longevity of older people by undervaluing their economic and social contributions that are enabled by their health and longevity. Now, the development of IIPS's Center for Aging Studies is a step in the right direction in combating ageism in India and beyond. And I should also mention another step that I believe would help set us on the right path toward better accommodation of the elderly. And that additional step is the establishment that I would like to see of an international convention on the rights of older people. Historically speaking, international conventions have arisen for a range of reasons. These reasons include crises or global movements triggering a need, like think, for example, of refugees and migrants or post-war reconstruction. These reasons include a gap in any dimension, so think here of the UNFPA addressing sexual and reproductive health. And the reasons include issues of global importance with fragmented initiatives that require coherence and coordination. Think here of the UNDP, UN Women, the ILO, UNAIDS, the WHO, and so forth. For older people, the COVID-19 pandemic has revealed a considerable gap in the current global institutional architecture. There is no single body at the international level that's responsible for advocating for this fastest growing age group in the world. Promoting social progress, improved living standards, and human rights are among the core aims of the United Nations. To that end, I think that establishing a convention and creating an agency that focuses on a stage of life increasingly experienced by a majority rather than a minority is a natural next step in achieving the UN's aspirations. I'm thinking here of a UN program for older people, a program that could lead and coordinate activities to specify and codify the rights of the elderly. A program that could be tasked with advancing norms and aspirations related to the physical, mental, social, and economic well-being of older people. I'm thinking of a program that could also provide essential support for national governments, like India's, and civil society, like in India, to design and implement policies that align with these norms and aspirations. Children nowadays are, as we know, and as I'm sure people at IIPS are keenly aware, children nowadays are more likely than ever to live to old age. As such, a UN program for older people's support of the current generation of older people could also improve late adulthood for future generations. We have, as I've just mentioned, agencies for women, children, workers, and refugees. Well, I continue to believe we need one for older adults, and I'd be very pleased to see the new Center for Aging Studies and IIPS combined to push that agenda globally. When I peer into the crystal ball, what I see is a very promising future for the new center. My hope is that it will contribute to a better understanding of aging in India, as well as the conditions that make it a better experience for some people, and that it will use that understanding to design beneficial policies and to build durable institutions that benefit current and future generations of older people, and also that benefit the country as a whole. Professor James, I think I'll end here. I'd like to thank you and Professor Shaker and the other panelists and all the participants in this webinar for their time. If anyone has any questions, comments, or suggestions, please feel free to email me at dbloom@hsph.harvard.edu. I don't go to bed at night typically till I've cleared all my emails, so I promise you a quick response. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. David. I think it has been very illuminating and exciting description of what's really happening on the aging situation, which is very, very important for India, and how actually we can take lessons from Lassie to move forward in the India. I think particularly I liked your statement that, population aging is inevitable, but the surveys, studies like LASI can make the consequences entirely different for the country. So I think that's a real good message. Real evidences can always help to have the right policies at the right time. So which is very, very important for any countries. I think that's very important. And also the second, your statement is also very important. Older people are the economic resources. So we need to really first accept that and then move forward, actually how to utilize them better in various aspects, including the informal sector, what you have mentioned on the care or other aspects of the economy. Thank you so much. It was really such a pleasure to listen from you, and we hope we will have more such interaction, because this aging center gives a unique opportunity to really link the LASI study as well as other studies within one umbrella, I think, to move forward in the future for the institute. I hope you would be able to continue, but I know that you have other commitments, but it's because currently the webinar is organized in such a way that the participants cannot ask any questions directly because they have been muted. So only those who have given the access can really ask any questions. If anyone have anything specifically asked, because there are only few has been given access. So naturally all the participants, we have large number, are all able to only listen to you, but they are not able to ask questions. Sorry about that. But if anyone would like to ask anything, please let me know. Otherwise, we can really tell goodbye to Professor David, because he has other commitment. He has already mentioned that he will be there with us only half an hour, but we know that the time is exceeded, but I hope you will stay back a few more minutes. So if anyone would like to ask anything, any questions?
James, I'm happy to take questions by email
Yeah,
also.
I think, yeah, that's right. They will be asking because there are a large number of participants. I am sure they will have questions, but you have already conveyed to them your email ID. I'm sure they will be communicating you through email. Thank you, David, once again. And I think because we can move to the next session, let me now call upon Professor R. Nagarajan. Professor Nagarajan is the Associate Head of the Center for Aging Studies. Professor Nagarajan, welcome, and also please go ahead with the second part of the program for inviting Professor Irudaya Rajan as well as Dr. Mala Kapur Shankardass for their talk. Over to you, Professor Nagarajan.
Yeah, thank you, Professor James. So I will introduce both Professor Rajan and Professor Mala Kapur Shankardass. So first I will go with the next speaker, Professor Irudaya Rajan. Yes, Irudaya Rajan was a former professor at the Center for Development Studies, Kerala. He has close to 40 years of teaching and research experience. Currently, he is the chair of the NOMAD, that is the Global Knowledge Partnership on Migration and Development, the World Bank, on internal migration and urbanization. He has published extensively in national and international journals on social, economic, demographic implications of aging, and also on migration, on individuals, community, economy, and society. He has undertaken projects with the European Union, International Labour Organization, International Development Research Center, Canadian Institute of Health Research, World Bank, International Organization of Migration, South Asian Network of Economic Institutes, Rockefeller Foundation, UNESCO, among various other organizations. He is one of the expert committee members to advise the government of Kerala on COVID-19. He was the former president of Association of Gerontology in India, the professional association of Indian academicians working on aging issues. He has undertaken many rounds of Kerala Aging Survey, which produced large data set on aging issues in Kerala. He was advisor to the government of Kerala on aging issues and was actively involved in drafting the Kerala aging policy. His study on old age homes in Kerala is well quoted by researchers and policymakers. His book, India's Elderly, Burden or Challenge, published by Sage in 1999, is an important contribution in the field of aging. His other books include Senior Citizens of India, Emerging Challenges and Concerns, published by Free Press, and another book, Elderly Care in India, Societal and State Responses, published by Springer, are well known, a contribution to the field of aging. And Professor, we are happy further that Professor Rajan is an alumni of IIPS, and we are really happy to have him as a speaker on this important occasion of starting a new center on aging IIPS. And our next speaker, Professor Mala Kapur Shankardass. She is a well-known sociologist, gerontologist, and health social scientist based in India. She retired earlier this year as a Delhi University professor. She is a researcher, writer, and an activist. She has published 10 books on aging to her credit, and 4 books are forthcoming. She has over 100 published articles in reputed scientific journals, books, magazines, and newspapers. He has also done monographs for WHO, UNFPA, and UNOC. She has chaired sessions and delivered keynote addresses at various conferences around the world on aging, health, and gender and development issues. She is editorial board member of international and national journals, including Journal of Adult Protection, published from United Kingdom, and Polish Social Gerontology Journal. She serves as consultant for United Nations and various international and national organizations. She has done prestigious assignments for UN, UNFPA, and UNOC. She has also worked for WHO Southeast Asian Regional Office on aging issues, and has been a resource person too with these organizations, as well as with the United Nations International Institute of Aging located in Malta. She was involved with the formulation of UN Madrid International Plan of Action on Aging, with the follow-up review of its implementation in different countries. She is at present international consultant on aging issues for International Institute of Aging. He is also the Asia representative of the International Network for Prevention of Elder Abuse. Recently, she was conferred with R.S. Wolf Memorial Award, an international recognition for her work on older persons. On International Women's Day 2021, she was honored by facilitating for the Swalampika Sanman, a Women's Achievers Award at All India level for her work in the field of gerontology. Really, we are proud to have her as a speaker in this evening. Professor Shekhar, over to you. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I think it's, Professor Rajan, it's over to you for your talk. We look forward to your listening to you first.
Thank you so much, Professor James, Professor Shekhar, Professor Nagarajan, and others for inviting me to be part of this particular event. And being alumni of IIPS, I'm also very pleased to be part of the new Center for Aging Studies. I think this is going to probably open up new research, new avenues for the upcoming researchers, probably globally, to come and spend some time in the center. And I decided to speak today on the impact on COVID-19. I think that's what I'm going to speak, and I will limit to my speech to a very limited time, something like 15 minutes, not beyond that. And I just wanted to start talking about, I think probably James and David Bloom, everybody talking about digital. And the theme is also digital equality. And we know how elderly suffered to register for their vaccination through the computers, through the mobiles. And many of them had the problem we have to go for direct registration. People can go and come and spend directly to get that vaccination. So the current program, whatever we discuss, it is not the user-friendly for the millions of elderly living in the rural areas. I think this is something we should keep it up, because when we talk about digital India, how elderly are being mainstreamed into the digital thing, I think this is very important, both in the context of international migration and also internal migration. Because the parents are not able to see the children because of the COVID-19 experience, what we had for last close to 2 years. The second and important point is, during COVID-19, there are two groups of people who have suffered so much, and one group is known to everybody. One group is what is called the unknown persons. One group is known, which is basically the internal migrants. We have seen them walking and running and dying while crossing their own country. But the elderly were put inside the house because the protocol said, please don't go out. Please don't go out made them more vulnerable, because we treated them as some type of separate category, and we discriminated them by their age. If you look at it very carefully, we have discriminated them by saying that if you go out, you are likely to catch COVID-19 and likely to die. But the problem is, when we put this type of COVID-19 protocol, we did not understand the condition in which the elderly live in this country. Same thing what happened to the migrants, the policymakers, or who decided the protocol, they were not taken into consideration, both the migrants and the elderly. Just to give an example, today in this country, 70% of the elderly households have no elderly. 70% of the elderly households in India have no elderly at all. So when you talk about elderly issues, these households have no implication, because there is nobody in their household an elderly person. And similarly, there are elderly households in this country without not even a single adult member. Not even a single adult member to go and buy something for them. In addition to that, you also have household. We have single member household in this country, ranging between 3 to 5% cut across the states, living alone. Forget about talking about old age homes, living alone. What happened to them when you say don't come out? Who is going to look after them? In fact, one of the contexts I told the Kerala government, somebody you identified the COVID patient, you are putting in front of the house, there is a COVID patient. Similarly, we should put the household where there is an elderly, because every household has no elderly. They need a lot of support system. So there are households with only elderly, living alone. And close to 10% of the elderly in this country are living with another elderly. 10%. They are living together in old age. Husband may be 85, wife may be 82. They were living together, maybe with the help of a servant. Of course, servant could not come because of the COVID-19. They were managing themselves. And what they will do, I have seen many elderly walking in the street during COVID-19. And I asked them that, you are not supposed to come out. They said, who will come and buy for us? And we never thought about their problem. We thought of controlling the disease in the process. We forget about a huge number of people who are living either alone or living together as old couples, or living without an adult member who can go and buy things for them. We have not taken into consideration these type of information which is available in the public domain. That means whatever we produce database, including laws, it is not reaching the policy maker to have a right decision for helping the elderly. And in addition to that, if you look at it, elderly are living with multiple disease. Multiple disease, not just one disease. By 50 plus, you have one disease, and if you reach 65 plus, 70 plus, you are living with 2 multiple disease. When you go further, you get into 3 multiple disease. How these disease were handled, management of disease were handled during the COVID-19 protocol. When I talk to elderly for some of my field work during COVID-19, many elderly will call the hospital. We want to come. The hospital will say, please don't come. If you come, you are likely to get COVID-19. So they were postponing many of their illness for the treatment. The Indian government and the state government produced data called how many people died by COVID. But what about the people who are denied medical benefits because they died? And most of the people who are denied the regular health benefits, regular health attendment, regular operations, regular care issues, regular treatments, many of them were postponed for the elderly. And it led to some of the people probably dying. We have no database on that. How we have discriminated them to get what is their right to health. And in addition to that, we only talk about COVID death, which is produced every day in the newspaper, in the websites. But what about the post-COVID complication of elderly dying? Many people whom we know who died not because of COVID-19, because of the post-COVID-19 implications. I think this is something we should all look at it. Maybe do a major research on this. How we have handled the elderly during wave 1, wave 2, when we had a crisis of oxygen and other related issue. What happened to the elderly living in the household, poor elderly, without living alone? I think this is going to be a greater challenge for us to look at it. And in addition to this, we also made certain protocols. For example, I was talking with the old lady. She was telling us that earlier, I had problem with my children, but I get solace by going to temples, going to church. I'll go and say Sri Rama Jayam, or I'll walk around the temple. Now you have also closed the temple. You have closed the church. That means they used to get some type of psychological well-being through visiting temples and churches, which was closed till recently. Till people say, elderly, please don't come. So elderly are the one who is getting more solace from the temple, churches, and the prayer places. And we have denied that to them. So psychological stress created during COVID-19 is, I think, I don't think we can imagine what happened to them. In addition to that, we always talking about women are being treated in the household during COVID-19. But we are not still talking about what happened to the elderly who are living in the household. What happened to them? Is there any wrong treatment to the elderly? I don't think we are not talking about that. And still, that is something important because we have a lot of people even dying. There are elderly committing suicides in this country. Recently, there was a person who was 89 died committing suicide. And I went there, I was thinking to ask myself, why should he commit suicide at the age of 89? 89. Probably he will live 2 more years or 3 more years. That means what we are doing over the period of last 40 years or 50 years, we are adding only years to these old people. We are not giving them the quality of life they deserve. Quality of life. We are adding years, but not life to the elderly. And finally, I also want to bring to notice to all the young people, the students who are doing research. COVID-19, we are taking everything for COVID-19. And we are very happy to spend hours and hours with Facebook. We are ready to meet people in the Facebook, but we don't want to meet them when they come to face with you. Very happy to talk, very happy to chat, very happy to WhatsApp. But somebody coming to see you, you are not interested in seeing their face, but you are interested to see their face in the Facebook. But what about the elderly? Let me give you an example. Again, I know an elderly, she was so charming prior to COVID-19. Very charming. Now, after the COVID-19 is happening, I saw her very recently. She was deeply depressed. She was deeply depressed. I took her, I was talking with her sometime. And she said, during the COVID-19, even I was thinking of committing suicide. But then my religion could not allow me. Because I thought if I die, commit suicide, probably I'll go to hell. Then I asked her what happened. And if you listen to the story, I think we should go beyond the data. We should go beyond the case studies. I think we should get into the psychological, mental health of the elderly during COVID-19, which cannot be measurable. And this lady told me, prior to COVID-19, my household was a very happy household. 7:30, my grandchildren will leave the house. I help them out. I go with them, drop them in the school bus. When the COVID started, this work is stopped. 7:30, my grandchildren will go. 8:30, my son will go out of the house. He said, I am going to work. And 9:30, my daughter also will go. So I was completely control of the whole household from 9:30 till 3:30 when my grandchildren comes back to the house. In fact, my daughter-in-law will tell me, saying that when my children will come, please take care. We'll be back only by 5:30. But the lady was telling me, she's telling her children. She never told me it is my grandchildren. Please take care of your grandchildren, she never told. Please take care of my children. And of course, with all the problems she had a very good time between 9:30 to 3:30, no disturbance. She had a good time. She can watch the program what they want. She can make the food. She can invite the local, the neighbors who can come and spend some time. When the COVID came, everybody is at home. Children, online classes. Son, work at home. Daughter-in-law, work at home. They told her, the government told you should not come out. They put her in one small room, told her you be there because the government given a clear instruction. You have to be inside. We will provide you food. And she was put inside the house in a room and she was completely devastated. I think we should look at it beyond the numbers. And there are bedridden elderly in this country. There are bedridden elderly. What happened to them? Who is looking after them? During COVID-19, we could not get any help. We are not allowed the domestic servants to come back to the houses to help for them. So I think elderly issues are getting up in a much more bigger way because of the decline in fertility. Today I was discussing somebody, China was talking about one child family. Imagine that you have one child and then you have two, your parents and your in-laws. So you are talking about 1 into 2 into 4 into 6. So the India is also passing through the decline in fertility and people are living longer. Adding fuel to the fire is both internal and international migration. So the future of the elderly is depend upon how much you can bring them into the development issue, because as the sustainable development goal rightly says, no one should be left behind. Are we leaving our elderly left behind in our development discourse? I'm going to stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Rajan. That was really indeed a telling story of what is really happening during the period of COVID, particularly for the elderly in this country. I think it has been a stark reality, which you have all seen, that they were not able to access healthcare, they were not able to go out, they didn't have cut off from the entire society. I think it has been really a bad period for them. It has not come out fully. We are still in the period of pandemic, but perhaps the situation may be slightly better than the past. But it's also important to really look at the past and really need to learn lessons from that, because if the pandemic again reappear in the future, what should be the strategy we should adopt? I think that you have provoked the audience to really look at what should be the strategy, what should be the way in which we address all such kind of issues in the future. I think it has been really exciting to listen. I'm sure we perhaps can see whether we will have some way of having some discussion on this. But before that, let me first invite Dr. Mala Kapur Shankardass. Dr. Mala, it's a pleasure that you are also joining us today. I know that you have a hectic schedule today, but thank you for joining, and we look forward to listening from you. Over to you, Professor Mala.
Good evening, all. Pleased to be part of this important webinar that marks the observation of the International Day of Older Persons, as well as the beginning of the establishment of the Center for Aging Studies at IIPS. Congratulations to Professor James, Director IIPS, and Professor T.V. Shaker, and my gratitude towards them for inviting me to make a presentation which touches on the theme of the UN Day for this year and also would reflect on the emerging aging issues in the country in the context of the wider focus of the center. I'm going to focus on digital literacy, accessibility, and challenges. India, like many other countries of the world, is aging at rapid speed and also undergoing technological change, with digital literacy becoming the need of all age groups. While segments of younger age groups are comfortably becoming part of the digital world, older populations' accessibility and participation in the digital reality is limited. To begin with, there is need for emphasizing on having programs in the country to enhance digital literacy among older people. The current scenario all over the world is for increased use of internet-based services, be it related to health matters, finances, management, social interactions, provisions for development of educational and specialization skills, or in general, managing day-to-day life. While as a country, it is pertinent for us to plan models, programs, and adopt certain strategies to enable adult and older populations to acquire digital competencies and abilities to deal with life more easily, it is equally relevant for our digital action plans to educate and prepare older populations, as much it is for younger groups also to become aware of the newer risks that are emerging in society, such as cybercrimes, misleading information, viruses affecting phones, laptops, computers, which threaten the rights, privacy, and security of people, especially those in older age groups, because of their unfamiliarity, limited knowledge, and inability in tackling these problems. An analysis done by police, certain enforcement agencies, said that they suspected older people to be easy victims to fraud, identity theft, information warfare, and phishing scams, the four usually identified types of digital crimes. Due to various reasons, but mainly because of prevailing digital illiteracy among older age groups, their vulnerability to various kinds of digital crimes is high. A major upcoming concern in aging societies is the growing digital divide between older and younger populations. Older adults, especially those residing in remote and rural areas, small towns, and in not so developed states of the country, are often unaware of the existence of different kinds of information and communication technologies. Yet, what I observe among the older people I have interacted as part of my research and NGO activities is that while while it is true to some extent that the underlying causes of digital divide between young and old are generation cohort effects, cognitive and physical decline related to aging, and in general, negative attitude towards technologies, but yet more and more older adults are ready and willing to adopt kinds of information technologies in order to fit into the world of their children and that of the aging larger society. This is in particular noticeable during the pandemic time, when technology is viewed in the context of its potential to improve the daily living of older people and facilitate their social participation in families, communities, and society. In the last 2 years, my observations as a gerontologist are that technological innovations in the health, social, and financial sector specifically are enhancing the quality of life of older people. Many new opportunities are seen to develop for them, and I'm happy to share that I was part of the Government of India working group for senior citizens, specifically planning on developing silver economy, which aimed at the creation of personalized service and technologies for maintaining autonomy in older people. It is worthwhile commenting that in many of the European countries, and also in some parts of America, Australia, and Asia, such initiatives on strengthening silver economy have been taken since at least the last decade. The new economic, health, social, and business opportunities available to older people due to digital and technological literacy is improving later years considerably. It is a lesson for many other countries, including India, adopt a robust digital literacy drive, make digital education and services available to larger segments of the population, which challenge of providing equity for all, young and old, use of digital tools in managing and coping with life. I would like to mention here that following trend in many aging societies, we must open ourselves to the market for geronto technologies, though I would confess that many older people are reluctant to use them as they are slower in adapting to new products. Also at present, high cost of these inhibits their choice for using them, and further, their accessibility is only in certain parts of the country, which the government plans to overcome in the near future. For certain vulnerable older people, those having the need for assistive technologies, the provision of digital and technological learning can be extremely beneficial in helping them remain independent as long as possible. Few NGOs, especially those involved in delivering health services, are using digital provisions for greater reach out, bringing medical facilities to the homes of senior citizens, thus improving their quality of life. Uses of telemedicine are being acclaimed not only by the medical profession, but also by patients of all age groups availing them. My interactions with some seniors in Ahmedabad, Bangalore, Chandigarh, Delhi, Hyderabad, Calcutta, Bombay, Patna, Visakhapatnam, to name some towns, indicates the benefits which they see in telemedicine, which is gaining grounds in many countries as it provides clinical care, health information, or health education at a distance. Such means of health services where technologies are used to reach out to seniors, particularly through certain NGOs and private healthcare provisions in some of the rural areas, as well as in urban areas when older people cannot physically access care, is seen by many as a boon for vulnerable seniors. For those with certain kinds of physical and mental disabilities, the digital means of delivery of healthcare is recognized as contributing towards telehealth, a necessity in aging societies. Longer lives, age-related disabilities, and prevalence of certain chronic diseases makes telemedicine or digital provisions for healthcare not only desirable, but a necessity in reducing or minimizing challenges and burdens patients encounter, such as transportation issues related to traveling for specialty care. I was impressed in 2018 when I was visiting a village in Chameli further up Rishikesh that telemedicine care was provided to a heart patient from a hospital in Dehradun. A couple of days later, I was told that his life was saved and the family members were so very grateful for this new means of healthcare. As they explained, this means of healing from distance through use of information communication technologies can be critical for wellness of senior citizens in the country. Significantly, adults in the family would take up literacy to become as the younger generation. Since 2020, with the prevalence of COVID, the Medical Council of India, which was earlier not so much in favor of medical consultations, along with Niti Aayog, released the guidelines for the use of telemedicine in India, and many seniors getting familiar with its benefits have welcomed this technological innovation. Today, we have a spurt in telemedicine providers in India. Industry experts like Bharat Ghera, with experience of hospitals, are working with bodies like Telemedicine Society of India to put in a process to benchmark the functionality of these providers who are reaching out to populations in need from all age groups, including older people. In my opinion, this is a very positive move for senior citizens in the country, as many of them find it difficult to access normal healthcare, especially as they have chronic conditions that need management, right from transportation to long hours in the waiting room. The impact on areas like cardiology, dementia care, and psychiatry for older people is particularly visible since a couple of years. No doubt, there were some issues which can be termed as learning curves, such as hesitation in acceptance, getting used to the platform, getting trained, and then managing concerns like security. But the benefits outnumber the obstacles. So there is a future for telemedicine. Digital care of older people by migrant children is also a trend noticeable in the country. In some cities where migration of children has left older parents alone, digital care is popular and benefiting. A relative of mine appreciated all the caring tips provided by her 3 daughters in America. What needs to be noted here in acceptance of digital means of communication and use of services related to health, finances, such as banking, use of credit facilities, etc., in social care, as well as interactions through internet links, and so on, is the role of some national and local NGOs working with older people who have been equipping elders 50 plus with digital education since last few years. There are many illustrations across states, rural, urban areas where these organizations, some supported by the government, corporates, industrial houses, and through personal initiatives of certain individuals, as well as educational institutions, in providing digital literacy and conducting computer education programs for older people. These programs, many of which are made available near their homes, have empowered seniors, made them computer literate, improved their quality of life, reduced generation gap, and facilitated many online services such as shopping, meeting daily household needs, buying of medicines, and getting connected to children, grandchildren who don't reside with them for various reasons. Due to easy accessibility to these programs, latest research is indicating that percentage of older people proficient in computer literacy in use of basic computer applications and digital skills, frequency in use of emails, Skype, Facebook, WhatsApp, YouTube, online booking of travel tickets, use of smartphones and such mediums is gradually increasing. I'm sure LASI data would also reflect this change in the lives of older people. As concluding comments, I would state that digital literacy is reaching out to many in all age groups, and many in terms of achieving SDGs. This is a welcome direction, but challenges for older people specifically remain, as our country has not been able to achieve adult literacy for all above 50 years. Socially and culturally, older people, and in particular older women, hesitantly access new technologies and take full advantage of it. For a digitally inclusive society, for achieving digital equity, lot more needs to be done at the policy and program level for the older populations. It is also pertinent for the nation to reduce social isolation of older people, mainstream them in society, and it is especially pivotal to have older persons' concerns dominant in planning as the government moves towards digitalization of almost all basic services and facilities. While the government's National Digital Literacy Mission aims to empower at least one person per household with crucial digital literacy skills, it is imperative that senior citizens be included also, which has not been the case so far. They have been missing from the plan. I will stop here. I wish good luck to the team of IIPS in establishing the Center for Aging Studies and taking forward research on aging, as well as bringing the concerns related to older people's center stage of policy and development plans. I would love to be associated with this premier institution. Appreciate you requesting me to deliver this talk on the auspicious Day of Older Persons. Thank you all for your patient hearing.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Mala Shankardass. It has been an exciting talk dealing with several aspects of digitization and digital literacy aspect of particularly its impact on the elderly. I think you have not only touched upon the negative aspects of the digital aspects, particularly the digital fraud and how it is going to affect the older persons, but also touched upon even the issues like telemedicine, how easy it will be able to access the accessibility of such kind of services for the older persons and what would be its impact. And perhaps also has given a roadmap actually how to really move forward. Thank you for that exciting talk. There has been 3 very illuminating talks today. I think it is so difficult for me to really give a summary of this talk. So I thought, perhaps a better person would be Professor Ajay Bailey, who is with us now. He is a professor at the Department of Human Geography and Spatial Planning at the Utrecht University, the Netherlands. Ajay, thank you for joining, and I would really request you to just give sort of a summary of what really today's talk about. Over to you, Ajay.
Thanks a lot, Professor James. I think it's an uphill task to give an overview of all these exciting talks that were held today. First, my congratulations as well to you and Professor Shekhar on the Center for Aging Studies. Of course, I almost feel it's like a reunion of all aging experts in India at this moment. So it's good to see everyone together. My first reaction somehow would also, I'm thinking of it, in Netherlands, a lot of focus is on keeping people at home as then sending them, so aging in place in that sense of not, they're shutting down care homes and these kind of things because they want to push more people to stay at home. And that has also led to the extent that you have a lot of caregivers who do not have jobs anymore because they have to readapt to these kind of settings. So on one hand, you have these whole digital experiences, like Philips, for example, is one of the leading players in providing at-home technological services in that sense. But they miss the human connect in that sense. So I'm also wondering, when we talk about bringing digital technologies or care technologies at home, there needs to be enough support mechanisms that would go behind that, that connect to different people. I mean, you can set an alarm going when someone has fallen, but there still needs to be someone who will come to pick that person up and take them to the hospital. So in that way, these connections back, the human connect back to the caregiver or the healthcare provider, that's something we still need to bring much more closer and contextualize, of course, to the local settings. The other thing that I thought, which may also come up across these different things, is you hear a lot about this issue about older adults being slow in adapting technology. I don't think we should, that I feel is a bit of an ageist comment. because it's not about older adults being slow to adjusting to technology. It's about the design of the technology that is not suitable for the older adults. The design of acceptability of how do you design the technology and the device that is more acceptable to the older adult. That's, I think we should start talking about, instead of fitting the older adults to the technology, we should talk about fitting the technology to the older adults, to bringing more design thinking into it. And I agree completely in terms of issues around financial literacy, financial digital literacy that Professor Mala highlighted. And bringing those elements not just for older adults, but as a family as a whole, because we know from different studies that we have done that it's not just the older adult who's taking a decision about that issue. It's a family-oriented approach into it. So bringing those people into it would also play a role. And I want to come back to what Professor Rajan said, in a sense that, we get all these kind of digital ways of bringing care, but there are already these care gaps that were existing before the digital revolution or in spite of the digital elements. So how do we then deal with those care gaps and to creating inclusive spaces or inclusive care for older adults needs to first address the element of those care gaps, about why those care gaps exist before giving those solutions. And I mean, to end a bit more on a positive note, I think it's this recognition of what works, where, and for whom needs to go into it while bringing this human and technology interfaces together. I hope there could be more discussion further on this kind of technological elements and bringing those to feasible, workable, and adaptable solutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Ajay. I think Ajay has been working on the issues of aging and migration, both in the context of India and many other countries for a long time. So he has a wide experience in this, particularly in the field of care and support. So thank you for your valuable comments. That it has been very illuminating. So as we told, we have only 10 minutes left for now to close this session. So let me know if there are any comments or questions from those who are participating or has the direct link in this webinar. You know that many of the others can only ask questions over the chat box. In case you have any pertinent question, please feel free to ask in the chat box. Otherwise, those who are already given access, please feel free to unmute and ask questions. This is this typical problem in the mode of a webinar, because most of the people, large majority of them cannot speak, although they wanted to speak. Only a few are allowed to speak, and they may not have anything to speak.
Not very democratic approach in
Not a democratic approach, definitely, but that is the way in which we are living now. Yeah, Miss, you would like to say something? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I think it is. Thank you, Professor James, because this is a very great initiative to bring together researchers, and these 3 talks that was delivered today evening was really exciting, touching upon the contemporary concerns for the welfare of elderly. But I have a few different viewpoints, because when we are talking of, we are actually talking of things which are positive. But in India as a country as a whole, I think when we talk about digitalization, if you look at the rural India and the complete digital infrastructure that we have, it is like a dream to say that we can actually make digital access everywhere. When I was hearing these talks, it was just making me feel most of urban concentrated or urban elderly issues, which perhaps can be resolved in many ways. It's not about digital adaptability. First of all, this country has to have that digital infrastructure to have equal access for everybody in the remotest areas. And the second thing that is very important is that when we talk about the changing circumstances, I think that aging research has to go beyond just identifying this entity of elderly or a designated group or a segmented group of the population. I actually wish to view this as a continuity. And in this continuity brings the optimism, because what I feel is that the future elderly are obviously going to be with a relatively very strong advantage, very strong adaptability, as well as what we are imagining as preparation. There is a substantial preparation. As Professor Rajan says, today, if we are estimating that the older adults of tomorrow will have children mobile and gone away. So basically a mental preparation, the societal preparation is already on. So what needs in policy front is recognize this environment that is going to emerge. And within that emerging environment, we must design policies. Because for instance, when I look at Kerala, the kind of community level policies that they are doing, because Kerala is the most mobile state, you know very well that there are many households where actually adult children are not there. So the entire policy framework on which they think of designing well-being of elderly, how do you accommodate them, how do you make them participate, most of them are community oriented. And I think that if we look forward to future, then this has to be brought in within our calculus, which will tell us that the future elderly, or the 20 years down the road, 30 years down the road, you will have more of a different scenario. The question of adaptability, the question of accepting things will not arise. What is more of a concern is basically recognizing this evolving familial societal environment, which is of a different kind, and within that to design policies, because that is perhaps will give better dividend. And in fact, this all information base that you are going to collect and you have will add a lot more to that effort. Thank you very much. It's interesting. Good.
Okay, thank you, Professor Mishra. I think he has raised very pertinent issues, because whether having access to the services is more important than actually usage, because access itself is not there because of the infrastructure deficiency in the access. So it's an important issue which our country needs to also address. But given that in case there are access, but again, problem of literacy, digital literacy comes in, that's also another major dimensions the country is facing. Thank you for that. I think there are a couple of chat box questions also. I will just read it out so that both of you can answer ultimately at the end of the time. One is that the quantitative questions and the qualitative research aspects, whether actually quantitative research like a large surveys, etc., can capture the issues of elderly, particularly psychological distress issues and so on of the elderly. So that is, so digitization, then digitization will be possible only in urban areas, not in rural areas. Digital divide is a reality. That was sort of a statements. I think these are some of these statements which we see in the chat box. And plus the telemedicine also, there has been some remarks on that acceptability. It's long way to go, because whether it is acceptable by providers, people, doctors, because that's also very important in a country like India, how far people trust such kind of a telemedicine way of addressing the health issues. That's another problem. Human touch is also very, very important, especially in a care kind of a situation, particularly the care for the healthcare and education. These are the two areas we always feel that the way in which we organize classes now, we feel that because there's no human touch in it, we are really as if we are teaching to something non-living things, which is really happening. So these are the two areas where health and education, where human touch is so very, very important. So that is the another aspect which has been saying how the telemedicine can address it. So maybe Professor Rajan, if any other questions? Otherwise, Professor Rajan and then Dr. Mala, you can just tell your final remarks.
I think there is no question of quality versus quantity. I think we should continue to have a large scale survey data, and then we should also continue to work on what is called the qualitative thing, because I think COVID-19 taught us that we may not be able to do even surveys now. We all did the, how many surveys are postponed in this country? We were all talking about online surveys. So I think we should think of qualitative issues, because qualitative data for elderly, especially on mental health. Because when I do research now, last 2 years, people also are talking about dignity at death. This was so bad during the COVID-19. We have seen, people are not able to attend their relatives, parents, grandparents, own brothers, sisters. I think the death of dignity is also something we should maybe start discussing about that, because the dignity at death is as important as when you live with the dignity. I think this is something it was a very bad seat. Even I think the government has failed to provide a dignity at death during burial, because many people felt their dead people could not get the proper, prayers or proper, end right. I think that was something very serious. We should look at it during COVID-19. And second thing, probably I want to say only one sentence, because we always talk about, rest in peace after people die. We call them RIP. I think it is good. When somebody died, you go and give them a rat saying that rest in peace. But I think it is the society should play a major important role to give them live in peace, LIP. When they are living, you should also give them peace. I think peace giving after their death is okay, but you should also give, when they are living, you should give them peace. For that, I think the children and the grandchildren should spend some time with the elderly people. I was talking with one lady from Singapore. She said, when the COVID was hit in Singapore, I took a flight and came and spent 9 months with my grandmother, who was alone in Delhi. I think how much time we send our own children to spend time with our parents. I think spending time with the elderly is completely missing. I saw a bedridden elderly in Kerala, 99-year-old lady. She was bedridden and she was not eating for last 2 years almost. And they were feeding her. I went to the house, they are feeding her with a ink bottle. I used to use it when I was 10th standard studying. We have an ink bottle, we'll press like that and then give the ink in our pen. And they are doing the same mission I saw after several years. They are giving the feeding. It needs care. And the doctor said, nothing will happen. Please keep her at the end of the life. But she was from the hospital. She came 2 years. She's living like that. I think what we require is some type of a touch. I think what James said. I think touch, which is not there. I think COVID has created a lot of distance. I think we should bring back even the new normal meeting. Like I said earlier, very happy to meet in the Facebook. Are you ready to meet the people when they are coming to face with you? I'll stop here.
Okay, thank you, Professor Rajan. Over to Professor Mala.
I would just like to say, pertaining to my talk, yes, there are still a lot of things we need to achieve. While we see some of the advantages, we have to remove many barriers which are there in our country. And the government has to focus on bringing elderly in the development policies. Till that does not happen, a lot of things will not be able to reach them. I mean, yes, certain sections of the society would benefit, but a government must have proper focus on very elderly favorable policies. Until we don't bring elderly focus, senior citizens focus in the country, many things will not be able to be beneficial to them. And the empowerment thing we talk about requires, like I said, when adult education, it stops for 50 years of age. It doesn't try to include third age universities have to be brought into into circulation. We need more such kind of programs where older people can benefit. NGOs are working. I know a few NGOs which are going to rural areas and bringing about a change. At least the statistics they are providing is there. But just NGOs cannot do. The government must have a very policy-oriented approach to benefit senior citizens, and they must recognize that they are a substantial portion of the population. And especially, I would like to say, and since you also have the Gender Studies Center, older women need better focus. They need better provisions, and they must receive the attention. They are really very vulnerable to many things until we don't take steps to bring them at par with a lot of things, whether it is property matters, whether it is health, whether it is in terms of accessibility to services, and even treatment at the family level. Older women tend to be more neglected than older men. So everywhere, and I think a media role has also to be emphasized, which can bring about a change in people's thinking, in attitudes, and so forth. So I still feel that this 21st century is seen as an aging century, but till we don't take into our hands to have robust programs and policies, older people for years to come will not be able to enjoy the quality of life which they are entitled to. And I think we need a convention for the rights of older people, so that their status, their dignity is all very well recognized. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think that's good not to stop, because I think Professor David Bloom also started with that. We need an international convention for older persons so that, all these issues are brought to the limelight. Thank you so much, both the speakers, Professor Rajan and Professor Mala Shankardass, and also Professor David Bloom, and also Ajay for actually summarizing the talk. And before we conclude, let me now invite Professor Dhananjay Bansod for a formal vote of thanks. Over to you, Professor Dhananjay.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Good evening to one and all present here. Hello, can you hear me, sir? Yes. Good evening to one and all present here on this occasion of International Day for Older Persons. Let me thank Professor James for having this center, because the first time we have having this Center for Aging Studies at IIPS, and the studies functioning. And being a member of the Aging Center, I take this opportunity to thank the respected chief guest of this webinar, Professor David Bloom, for attending this webinar despite of his busy schedule and flagging out this the many important issues of aging in India and the use of LASI data to address these issues. So thank you, sir, so much, sir, for addressing these issues. And as a center, we'll also take up some of the studies to address these issues. And our students, they are also studying on this. They are also using this data to flag it. These are the important issues. I extend my gratitude to Professor K.S. James, Director and Senior Professor IIPS, not only for spending his time with us today, but also for encouraging us to every aspect. Thank you so much, sir. And it is my pleasure to thank today's speaker, Professor Irudaya Rajan and Dr. Kapur Shankardass, for accepting our invitations, though it was 11th hour, and giving very informative talks. Thank you so much, sir. And the most importantly, on the occasion of this older populations, International Day for Older Persons. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am, for your thoughtful deliberations. And I would also thank, because the last moment we asked Dr. Bailey, Ajay Bailey, for summarizing this one, summarizing all the talks, and he rightly agreed, and he summarized the talks, and he has given his concluding remarks as well. Thank you, Dr. Ajay. And I sincerely thank Professor T.V. Shekhar for taking the lead in inviting all these speakers and organizing such a wonderful event. Thank you so much, sir, for all your efforts. Last but not the least, I thank all the participants who are present here. So altogether 102 participants attended this webinar. So without you, this function would not be a success. So thank you all the participants. And I sincerely thank all the technical members from the ICT for uninterrupted support for this webinar. And once again, I thank one and all wholeheartedly. Thank you. Thanks all.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Dhananjay. And this function is also really because of motivation of some of the students working in the issues of elderly. There has shown also keen interest to really organize such function. Thank you all the students for taking up this initiative as well. So thanks all of you joining, and the webinar is formally closed. So thanks once again. We will hope to meet you soon in some other occasion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Bye-bye.